You're going to have a fun time cutting this up. Thank you guys for joining us. Today we have Jennifer Wang on our podcast. Jen, do you want to kind of just tell our audience a little bit about you?
I guess most people know me as a content creator, but I'm actually a pharmacist primarily. And I make content about fashion, do fashion reviews on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So I've been on TikTok for maybe, I want to say 2 years now. No, 4 years. So since the COVID pandemic, which was like 2020, so 4 years now. On YouTube, maybe for a year. And then on Instagram, I've been there for like, I don't know, 8 years or something like that.
How did you get into fashion?
Well, I mean, I think part of being a girl is you always like fashion. It's kind of like how much you like it, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember when I was in pharmacy school in second year, I did a placement at like a more remote place. It was London, Ontario. And then I was so bored because there was nobody there in the summer. It was like a college town that I just started taking photos of my outfits and putting them on my Instagram. And then that's kind of where my content took off. And that's kind of where I started to like fashion more because it was something that I could document. It's something that I could see visually. And pharmacy being more of like an evidence-based field, like kind of science-based, it was kind of like my creative outlet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's such a unique kind of background because one thing I've definitely noticed with your content, because you do have that more analytical science-based background, right, yeah. You apply that to fashion, which I think is a great way for people with other modalities to come into a certain space to talk about it. Like a lot of people don't. Traditionally, I'm actually a gas fitter by trade. So I did HVAC, I did geothermal, solar panels, heatings, boilers for a few years before I started my businesses like a decade ago.
Okay.
But I definitely, for myself, not coming from traditionally from fashion, I think it gets a lot of unique experiences that you can bring because you look at it very differently than what would be traditionally trained.
Yeah, like a different perspective for sure. And I think my approach to fashion is more structured.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, being a little more structured.
Yeah, well, I think for all of my videos where I do reviews, I'm looking at the garment kind of in a scientific way instead of just artistically.
So let's break down the Jennifer Wang method.
So we're looking at the garment, we're seeing how it looks on the rack, right? And then we're going to look at the garment tag to see the fiber content. We're going to kind of analyze the fabric a little bit, and then we're going to look at the sewing, so the construction, the workmanship, and then we're going to look into the little details like the buttons, the zippers, the lining, things like that. And then we're going to give our final thoughts of the total garment.
Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at clothing, especially that you're looking to buy for yourself, what are kind of like key points that are really good highlights for you that you're like, yes, this is something that I can really relate to, or something that I can give my sign of approval on?
So because of my content, I'm at the malls a lot and I see what's out there all the time. So I have a good idea of what things should be priced at. So for me to make it worthwhile to buy something, it has to be like a fair price. So.
That's interesting. You're almost like it's like a stock trader for clothing.
Yeah, I have like all this information in my head, like of all the different brands, about their pieces and like their materials. It's like a lot of information, but I feel like my brain kind of works that way already because I have so much information about medications in my head. Yeah. So it kind of like just sorts information that way. So something for me to buy would be something that's fairly priced, something that's like an appropriate material for the select garment. Because, you know, different garments need different materials. So like, for example, like a pair of leggings, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be some sort of synthetic blend, but I might not necessarily buy synthetic for like a coat or a blouse, something like that. Something like that. And then, of course, the construction workmanship has to be pristine. Like my pet peeve is like crooked stitching or like a button that's falling off or just like, you know, little mistakes in there.
I think when it comes to, especially a lot of brands, the quality control aspect is, and we talked about this earlier, if something's priced at $20 versus $300 or $100, it's going to be judged very differently. Exactly. When you are selling something for $100, $200, the room for error should be significantly lower. But before we actually change topic, you talked about pricing and how you always have this kind of awareness of pricing of products in the market. Have you ever shared this? Almost like there's a page I've seen called Data But Make It Fashion. But have you ever thought of just sharing of like prices are in this kind of categories are going up or down? Because I think you know that all the time and people would be really curious about that.
That is really interesting. But the other side is those prices change all the time, from sales to like
But people
sales.
want to know these things. You have like such a awareness of like the pricing trends. You're like a live pricing trend data tracker.
I haven't thought about sharing that, but that's interesting. Like put it in Excel or something.
Let her know if you want her to start sharing that content, because I think a lot of people would find that very valuable.
Yeah, I think I personally would too if I saw something like that. But like, it is going to be very hard to keep up to date because there's so much out
Oh
there.
yeah. But
no, it's
even
good
like
idea.
seasonal trends in terms of in terms of like pricing, but even the trends itself, being in the malls, you're constantly seeing what's out
Yeah.
there. Right now, what are you kind of seeing as the trends for the season?
So right now, even though it's February, the spring stuff is coming out. So we're getting our linen pieces, our dresses, our skirts, our florals are coming back. I think what I'm seeing in store is really different than what's popular online.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So online, especially on TikTok, where there's like micro trends every single day, like the trend on TikTok is like leopard print. It's like red, right? But you don't see that as much in the malls. So I think, and because there's so many micro trends currently, like it's kind of hard to say what is actually the biggest trend. So I think everybody likes a different micro trend, and then like kind of like anything can be trendy.
I find with TikTok, it's something that something just pops off and something random, and then people are selling all these products and then dead.
Exactly. No, actually, like most recently, it's Mob Wife. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
So like fur coats, big glasses, red lips. But like even though it's on TikTok, no one talks about it in real life, I feel like.
Depending on even the social media platforms, it's kind of like its own little microcosm of attention. And I think what I see as social media has really turned the world into one giant high school. And brands become so important because you want to be like the popular girl or the popular guy. So that's why people are buying, especially I think a lot of millennials are buying a lot of very expensive clothing because they want to look rich. And helping all these micro trends because it's just become one giant popularity contest. And I think, like it or not, that's just the way the world is now.
No, for sure. I definitely see that, especially with social media. It's like a lot more about showing like how rich you are, how successful you are, a lot more like just showing off.
And I think that's why a lot of people gravitate to your content, because it's not just look at me. They're actually getting value. And I think they're learning. And I think that the commoditization of attention and learning is moving away from traditional institutions into more shareable kind of modalities.
And I think with the rise of TikTok, maybe attention spans are shortening a little bit. So with like education on TikTok, I think there is still like a thirst for education, but maybe not in like the classic long form lectures that we're used to seeing, but like more bite-sized pieces.
Yeah. And I think that's for what we found with our content too. It's we just break down one specific thing, and I think the traditional way of learning is so different. I see everyone can be a content creator these days as long as you're providing value, and at the end of the day, people are trading attention for what they're getting in exchange, whether it be entertainment or education. This is totally the way everything's going to go. Talking about trends again, with all these micro trends, how do you feel about them, and what is your kind of own decision making in terms of your own style?
When I was younger, I definitely leaned towards more chasing trends, and like I used to like buy new things so I can change my style to fit the current trend. But I think as I've gotten older, I kind of realized like your own style is going to be what fits on your body, what you love to wear, how it makes you feel. And I tend to try to buy things that I know I'm going to wear for a long time instead of trying to chase trends. Of course, I do like buy a few trendy pieces here and then to like mix into my like more timeless wardrobe. But I think definitely as I've gotten older, I've like gravitated away from chasing trends.
Absolutely. And we talked about this earlier about sustainability and what true sustainability is. And being something that's truly sustainable is something that's really well made, that lasts a really long time, that you can, a nice black shirt, it's something that's going to be timeless and you can always wear it. Was it Karl Lagerfeld that said, you never be overdressed or underdressed in a little black dress?
He probably said something like that.
So having your timeless style, have your own kind of aesthetic is so important, because then you don't have to always be worried and stressed about fashion. I think that's one big thing a lot of people worry about, and it's contributed to all this consumerism is everyone always wants to look like really cool, but when you see somebody that has their own style, it's even cooler. It's effortless.
Yeah.
It looks like they got their shit together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you have your own style and you can show it proudly, like that just speaks volumes.
Yeah, and I think in terms of specific pieces, so when it comes to clothing, what is the upper limit that you would ever spend on clothing, and where do you kind of splurge a little, and where do you kind of save a little more?
Upper limit, that changes depending on how much I make. But I think I definitely would splurge more on coats.
Yes.
Because that's the most outer layer. If it looks nice, it's going to make your whole outfit look nice. And of course, it's going to be warm and thick and good material. But where I save is like on basics that I know I'm going to damage. So for example, like a white t-shirt. I know I'm going to stain that because I'm clumsy and I'm going to spill something on myself. And even if I buy like a t-shirt that's a couple $100s, it's going to be ruined. It's just a matter of time when it's ruined.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Let's dive into your personal style a little bit more. You being a fashion influencer, a lot of people look to you for style advice and also, your educational content on what is good quality clothing to buy. Mm-hmm. What do you see as big gaps in the market that, you may want to fill with maybe your brand?
That's actually how this all got started. So I know you probably remember I reached out to you before the holidays to like talk about starting my own brand, and that really stemmed from creating the content I do, and then people asking me for recommendations for certain things, and I can't think of anything. That's like for example, people asking me for where do I buy a white t-shirt that's not see-through, that's not gonna stretch out. I can't think of anything. So I'm like, maybe I will create a brand that like fills these gaps.
Without revealing too much, what is it? What is the brand? What is it for? Who is it for?
I think so. The brand is just, going to be a collection of really high functioning items. So items that are effortless, items that are easy to maintain, items that are going to last you a long time, items that are made from good materials. And this is made for people like me. Like, I'm in my 30s, I'm working, I need clothes for work. I want to have clothes for going out too. And sometimes the things that you want are not available on the market, especially with the way that things are these days. Like, I feel like a lot of corporations or fashion brands are just making things less good over time. There's
a lot of shit out there, guys.
Seeing quality year after year. And a really good example is Club Monaco. I'm going to call them out. But last year, I saw so many 100% wool coats in store for women. And this year, I saw none. Like, not a single one that was 100% wool. And the prices of their coats are the same. So it just goes to show, corporations are chasing after profits and no longer trying to make clothes that are going to stand the test of time.
That's where private equity steps in and tries to extract all the value out of a brand.
Actually, exactly. That's exactly what happened to Club Monaco. Private equity bought them in, I think, 2018 or something like that, and then
that's exactly where the downfall of all brands happen. Very few brands have the sustainability to last a really long time. Mm-hmm. Most brands they hit an apex, then private equity steps in.
Exactly.
They extract all the money they can. Think of like back in the Parasuco. Diego knows Parasuco. A lot of these brands, they get their heyday, they get all the money extracted, they end up in Walmart. Yeah. But to bring it back to your brand, I think one thing that's very interesting, and it's been great to collaborate with you on creating your products because you are such a stickler for particular details. And I think having that as a collaborator makes it very enjoyable to create very high quality and like very specific garments that solve problems for your followers.
Followers. Let's not call them fans.
Do you have like a group name for them, like the Benedict Cumberbatch's group?
Or Beyonce's Beehive?
Yeah, the Beehive. Do you have
I don't. I mean, I know that builds like community, but it's just so cheesy, and I personally don't.
Well, okay, so what I'm saying is, I love how you're really thinking about your audience and thinking about the problems that they go through, and how you can create products that solve problems. So it's not just another piece of clothing.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that is what creates a lot of pull for people. And that's what creates a lot of word of mouth, because you're creating creating problems, creating products that actually solve problems for people. And at the end of the day, help them in their life.
So products that like solve problems in my life, and I know that other people who are similar to me are also having these similar problems. So yeah, it's going to be like a garment that is going to make your life better.
And when are you looking to launch this?
This is going to be fall, winter of this year. So probably in August.
Okay. So look out for those products that are coming. Obviously, I'm in the design process where I'm excited for what we're going to be creating here. In terms of actual design, let's touch on the topic for design. What are your kind of favorite designers? Who are your most hated designers?
I don't think I have designers that are favorites, because
Okay, let's
I
do
know,
brands.
yeah,
Okay.
I kind of know them by brand and less by designer, and because designers shift around too. But the brands, they have their core identity for the most part. Aesthetically,
Okay, yeah, let's actually break this down, because it's going to be very interesting.
Okay.
Let's break it down by aesthetics, quality / value.
okay. Aesthetics, I love Chanel.
So does my wife. She calls it, my wallet doesn't. Yeah, I love what Virginie is doing with Chanel. I think from her first cruise collection that she stepped in. Was it the rooftop collection? I don't remember. But one of her collections, it's very iconic. It's very clean, and you just look very like beautiful.
I think the most recent cruise collection that's in store, maybe it's not in store anymore, but it was just very fun and young and fresh, and I just really like that. So that's aesthetically.
Okay.
I want to say Aritzia, because I like the aesthetic of the store, but I wouldn't necessarily buy everything from the store.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it has to do with how they design the store as well, like the furnishings, the decorations, like the whole picture just looks very beautiful. And I think similar to that, Oaken Fort is beautiful aesthetically, but if you look at their clothes closely, or if you take it out of the store, that's a different story.
So I think we should really talk about that too, because the in-store experience, and I think this is where you see you have so much expertise in this, because you're always in these stores where a lot of clothing is designed for in stores.
Yeah,
And the moment you take it out of the store, it's a very different product.
absolutely.
We reviewed the shirt from Alo today. Chemical washes on there to make it softer. The brushing to make it, again, more very soft. It's all about converting the sale.
Exactly.
But walking through Aritzia with you earlier too, I do agree. Whoever is the creative director or the merchandiser, their entire creative team is doing such a good job of making it feel like, even breaking up the store, you're still within the same footprint of the store, but you feel like you're transitioning spaces.
Yeah.
So it's actually genius, because it incentivizes people to just stay in the store longer. There's the cafe in the store as well.
Exactly.
But yeah, I totally agree. I think Aritzia has done a great job. We've come a long way from just TNA back in the day. Okay, so how about brands or stores that you hate? Maybe not hate, that's a strong word. Maybe like dislike strongly.
So Oaken Fort.
Okay. For quality.
For quality.
Okay.
Yeah. The pieces they sell are very highly priced for what they should be costing. And I think people buy there because the store is beautiful and they like the outfit style on the mannequins. But like you said earlier, stores make clothes that look nice in store, but once you take it out, it's going to be a different story. So for example, like acrylic sweaters, nice hand feel, really soft, feels like good quality, but you take it out, you wear it a few times, it's going to ball up real quick, you wash it a few times, it might get really hard, not as soft as it once was. And you kind of feel deceived, because in store you felt that nice texture, and then you take it home and it's completely different.
Shrinks.
Yeah, it shrinks. Yeah, all sorts of things.
And I think we kind of probably share the same thought process when it comes to high price clothing. I have no problem spending money, even though I know exactly how much everything costs. Actually, I don't have a problem. I do have a problem, but I kind of just bite the bullet on certain things where I don't mind spending a lot of money if it's good quality.
Exactly.
Right? At some point, there's an upper limit of how much something costs to make. And at the end of the day, Balenciaga has to sell $1,000 t-shirt.
Yeah.
But it needs to be at least good quality.
Exactly.
Right? In terms of aesthetics, what is one brand you hate?
I think Zara.
So we talked about this earlier with Zara, being fast fashion.
Yeah.
A lot of these brands use buying houses, and they literally will just go to these buying houses and just pick, and they all get presented, and they just pick it, and they buy it. And that's why there's such a variation in terms of quality and sizes.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So if you ever go to a brand and you're like, why am I a small and a medium all within the same store? It's because they're using buying houses, and a lot of the ones they're not even designing themselves. Yeah, it's like, why concentrate all this design when all your factories will do it for you because they hope you buy the clothing, and that just happens a lot of time.
Yeah, Zara is a big no-no for me.
And I think like Zara a few years ago, it's when there wasn't all these other brands, and it was just like H&M and Zara. Zara was like kind of cool.
No, for sure.
Because they had some new. It was like the slightly edgier H&M.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
But now it's, first of all, I can't even go to Zara in a mall. It's just chaos.
It makes me feel anxious being in that store.
There's clothing everywhere.
Yeah, it's just overwhelming.
It's a mess, and the lineups are so long. Whereas I went into the H&M store the other day, and like, they clearly redesigned. I'm like, oh, this looks nice. But I think there's so many different brands now that you don't have to do these fast fashion things. You don't have to buy clothing that's only going to last you
1 or 2 wears.
One thing I actually see popping up a lot these days is these extreme high-end, quiet luxury brands like Brunello Cucinelli and Loro Piana. I was with Diego in China, and we walked into a Loro Piana store, and there's a $1,000 t-shirt, and I was like, oh.
Did you buy it?
It's hard for me because I know like what that costs to make, and I know at the end of the day, it's a sunk cost. But if you guys really want to see me do it, I'll do it. But what are your kind of thoughts of this kind of trend towards more upmarket, higher end pieces? Even we talked about Ralph Lauren, Purple Line, a $7,000 jacket. Yeah, that's a car.
Yeah, actually.
By the way, it doesn't cost anywhere near that to make it. But what are your kind of thoughts about these new brands that are kind of popping up on this really high end line?
It's crazy, but like, with that quiet luxury trend that we had, with Sophia Richie and like her aesthetic, like of course more people on social media are seeing these brands, and then now they're thinking like, maybe I want that too. Maybe I want to buy that. Maybe it's worth buying. And at the end of the day, like of course, people want to buy value, but sometimes they're buying a feeling from the brand.
Because they want to feel rich.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I think it's such an important topic to talk about, because as much as people want the value, people do want to spend money sometimes on certain things, because exactly that. We are psychological creatures at the end of the day, and people want to spend money on I like Rimowa luggages. I like Tumi luggages, right? Could I get one with a different brand? Yeah. Do I want one with a different brand? No. Because at the end of the day, regardless of who you are and what kind of interest you are, people always are going to gravitate to a brand. It doesn't have to be clothing, but people will gravitate to tool brands, car brands, pencil brand, all of these things, because it hits the psychological feeling of, oh, I'm special. I'm a little more than what I am.
Yeah, exactly. You can have 2 luggages that serve the same function, but if you're dragging that silver luggage to the airport, you're gonna feel like.
and I do think at the end of the day, I know I've talked about this with my audience before. There's a significant large part of the portion of the society that can spend $1,000 on a t-shirt and not bat an eye at it. And at the end of the day, I think fashion is one of those unique things that, because it's accessible to everyone, people think it's for everyone. There's brands that sell $7,000 jackets. Doesn't mean you need to buy $7,000 jackets. But I think it's a move towards quality. It's a move towards romancing made in Italy. And I think we can talk about the topic of manufacturing. We make some garments for our clients in Italy, and Italy's great because it's moved towards more kind of artisanal manufacturing. Yeah, at the end of the day, all garments are handmade. But
Fair enough. Okay. Technically speaking.
so it's moved towards more of like artisanal because all the factories, they're smaller.
Okay.
People are making them because Italy has spent so much money on creating the story of made in Italy marketing. The country itself has done this. And when it comes to made in, especially in Europe, anywhere in the EU, to be made in, it's the last significant transformation. So you can buy all your fabric and components from another country, bring it into Italy, sew them all together, and then it's made in Italy. You can charge a higher price tag.
See, I think a lot of people don't realize that. And I think more people need to know, because like you might think you're getting like a much superior product in Italy, but those components could be coming from everywhere.
You can literally bring everything in, have your tags, everything, and just bring a kit into Italy, make it, and it says made in Italy.
That's crazy.
It allows you it allows you charge a higher price point. And here's the interesting psychological aspect of it, and we talked about this earlier, is you almost have to charge a higher psychological price point for it,
or
because
there's that disconnect.
There's a cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Where if you're selling a $20 made in Italy shirt, people are going to think it's fake.
Yeah.
You need to charge over $100 because that is what people are pursuing, because it's brand at the end of the day.
That's so crazy.
Brand as the country of manufacture.
Yeah, exactly. Country of manufacture is also in itself a brand.
Yeah. When you're looking at garments that you've seen in stores, are there certain countries that you're seeing better quality stuff out or worse quality stuff out of?
No, like I don't think you can generalize anything to a whole country. Like there's different regions, there's different factories. Like you can have a really bad factory in one region and a really good factory in another, and like they're both made in the same country. Like you can't generalize that.
That's a very good point you're making, because being in manufacturing ourselves, we manufacture in various regions of the world. And I think a lot of people have this idea like made in China is crap, but it's like, that's from like, people are thinking the same thing from like the 90s, right? It's the country's moved so much from where it is. And Diego and I were in China last year. There's nobody working factories under 35 because all the youth want to work. They've been grow up with their Douyin, which is their TikTok.
Right.
They've been watching that. They're not going to go into a garment factory and try to sew anything. Right. They want to work at a tech job. They want to work in the EV sector that's blowing up.
Like a fancy office or whatever.
Exactly. So you really look at these, I would say, maturing states of manufacturing in different countries, and you're going to be able to see that China is going to eventually move. I think they're actually have a huge issue manufacturing clothes in China in the next 10 years because there's just not going to be any workers available. And actually also something very interesting, when you see made in Italy and made in Portugal, sometimes there's just a lot of Chinese people in these factories.
I have heard that.
Like made in Canada, it's just all Chinese people.
That's wild.
And it's not just because Chinese people, it's because if you want workers that actually have the knowledge on how to do it, you have to go where those workers are. And those workers are going to be in China, they're going to be in India, they're going to be in Bangladesh, Vietnam. You're not going to traditionally train somebody who's born in North America on how to cut and sew because they want a different job.
Exactly.
And that's just the reality of manufacturing thing that a lot of people don't realize. Yeah. They see the Dior video of the artisanally crafted tote. It's like, that's not how it's actually made.
Hearing that, like, it makes so much sense to me, but I have never thought that.
I think a lot of people, unless you're in the industry, because people don't actually show the manufacturing side, that people just think it's just made in Canada. It's just a bunch of white people. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's what I would think.
and you know, like we were at Rupa Knitting, and the largest knitting factory in Canada, and he's having so much difficulty actually finding workers. He has to fly them in. He has to get them work visas because that's the only way he can actually get the people who know what to do to work there.
That's crazy.
It's because if you want people with experience, that's how you're gonna have to go about it. But yeah, I think back on the topic of manufacturing in different countries, it's really all going to be about the factories you work with.
Exactly.
And the instructions you give the factory. If you say, make me the cheapest t-shirt you can, you're going to get the cheapest t-shirt they can make, and it's not going to be good quality, right? So for brands out there that are manufacturing, make sure you align your expectations with what you're actually trying to make.
Yeah, you get what you pay for at the end of the day, right?
100%. And talking about brands, what's some advice you would give people that are looking to start brands and things that they should be mindful of?
I think at the end of the day, creating clothes. So for me, I'm not a fashion designer, but I think what really helped me,
which I love because, sorry to cut you off, I absolutely love that because you're bringing such a unique insight that isn't just traditional fashion. You're able to bring insights from people that are outside and solve problems for consumers that aren't traditionally in fashion and problems that haven't been solved right now.
Because when I think of fashion designers, I feel like maybe they're focused on the artistry of fashion, like creating these haute couture looks or these avant-garde looks, but maybe they're not necessarily thinking about the problems of working people, like working everyday women who have problems with the clothes that they're wearing. So I think, it's super interesting that, I'm seeing it from this way. And I think even though I'm not a fashion designer myself, what really helped me understand clothes was getting a sewing machine, trying to make a shirt myself, trying to put together a garment, and just seeing actually the process and how difficult it actually is. Because before I picked up that sewing machine, I feel like a t-shirt would be pretty easy to make, but now I'm no way, I don't think I can make a t-shirt at all.
Yeah. That's why they're called skilled workers. Bring it back to the topic of being outside of an industry. Are you familiar with the Gutenberg press?
No.
So the Gutenberg press is basically the first press that was ever made for actually making newspapers and everything.
Okay.
He was not from that industry. He was traditionally a goldsmith, but marrying his skill set. And there's something called exaptation, where you take skill sets from external experiences and bring it into different modality, which gives you such a way to supercharge what you're creating because you are looking at it from a different point of view. Bringing your experiences into starting a brand, and like you said, cutting and sewing your own pieces, because I think the commoditization of information is so different now.
Exactly.
I'm sure you learned a lot on YouTube. I learned a lot of my
Absolutely.
stuff on YouTube as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So with that in mind, would you say that's kind of where you would get people to start off in terms of trying to make their own things?
Yeah, I think so. Even if you're not a classic fashion designer, it's really good to kind of learn the process and try to do it yourself before you try to create garments, because that way you have a better understanding of the garments itself, the process, and what can be made better and what can be or omitted altogether. So yeah, I would definitely recommend people who are looking to start their own fashion brand to kind of learn how to make clothes.
And I think the barrier for entry, there's actually so many libraries have programs as well that you can actually go and utilize their
Or
sewing
Michael's
machines.
has a craft program.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's there's so many ways to just get into it and just dip your feet into it, so you can just get an experience of how does a fabric flow, how does it drape, how is it going to perform differently on your body than something else would.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so much information out there. People ask me all the time, how do I know so much about fabrics? I don't really.
No, she's being modest. You know a lot. I think compared to the average person, even compared to someone, you'd be surprised how little a lot of people in fashion themselves know about fabric. If you come from a very large fashion house, you're so siloed in what you do that you might only touch intimates. You might only touch single jersey knits or only touch wovens. So I think your experience being able to see and touch so many different fabrics and what you do, you're able to actually get a lot better understanding in terms of the overall scope of fabrics compared to a lot of traditional fashion designers. So don't be too modest on that. You know a lot.
But yeah, the part of how I learned all this is just self-research, right? You go on Google, you type up what is viscose, and then you learn what it is and how it is made, the properties of it, like how it drapes or how it wears over time. And you do that for like pretty much every single fiber content that you can think of, and pretty much you know them all. And like really there isn't that many if you think about it, right? There's like synthetics, there's your natural fibers, there's your semi-synthetics, and that's about it.
There's actually a great book that I would suggest you get, and I would suggest a lot of people get. It's called the Textilepedia.
I have that one.
Oh, you have it? Okay. Fashionpedia makes a lot of great books. And it's a great way to learn about, they don't cover everything, but they cover most things.
It's a good starting point for sure, and a good resource.
What I'm going to ask you then, what do you you're a couple of years into full-time, or not full-time, but like really diving into fashion content. We know about your past, we know about your present. What is the future?
I think my future in content will probably be similar to the present. Like I have been asked like, will I quit being a pharmacist to pursue this full time? And I don't think I would.
What would make you?
What would make me?
Obviously replacement of salary.
A lot of money. Yeah, that would make me.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think I could be an influencer or like a content creator full time and just let go of pharmacy completely.
I think you're forgetting your brand owner as well.
Soon to be brand owner, sure. It's just because like it took me so long to get this degree. It took me 7 years.
That's the sunk cost fallacy.
Yes, that's so true. Like it took me 7 years to get one degree, and because I did 3 years of undergrad and then I left that to do PharmD. So that's 7 years in total to get this PharmD degree, and to just like let go feels like such a waste to me.
It's very Asian of you.
And plus my mom will kill me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to Asian parents, I think at the end of the day, as hard as they are, they just want to see you succeed.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think when they can see you can stand on your own 2 feet in a different industry, I think you should be more than happy to see you pivot.
Yeah, for sure. No, my parents have been super supportive about the content creation thing. They have like the same YouTube account, right? So recently I went to visit them and they told me this funny story about how my dad would watch my content and like it, and then my mom would watch it and then like it again.
And then I like it.
Oh no! Like it. And then I was like, because like she's not very good at computers,
Yeah.
so she's like, how come I like it and the number doesn't go up?
Yeah.
Liked it. So funny.
But it's great that they're supporting you. I think having supporting family is so important, especially getting into content creation, because it's hard. You're putting yourself out there to be judged.
Yeah.
You're probably a ruthless schedule working. Can you actually talk about that? You work a full-time job. Mm-hmm. You're constantly content creating. Yeah. How do you balance all of that?
I feel like because I'm a little bit of a workaholic, it's not that difficult for me. So what I do is I work a 40-hour work week, so 8 hours every day at the hospital. And then on weekends, I will go to the mall for maybe like an hour or two. I look at the new stuff. I check out like, kind of like just shopping. Like that's something I like to do anyway. Just like look to see what's out there. I might not like buy anything, but just like to see what's out there. Yeah. And then, while I'm doing that, I'm filming a few clips in the stores. And then when I get home, like after my shift, maybe like I'll edit a video, I'll film a video. Like it's just like a green screen of my floating head on top of the clip I filmed in the malls. And then that takes me like, I want to say 10 minutes tops to make a video. And then I post that.
Do you edit it in 10 minutes?
Maybe editing takes longer, but like
filming
it is really fast.
Okay.
Editing maybe half an hour.
Okay, that's still pretty quick.
Yeah, it's really quick. It's not as high quality as your content, of course.
Well, I don't edit in my own content.
It's like super low key, and then I post one of those every day, and I make like 5 a week. So it takes just an extra 5 hours of work.
You're basically doing 2 full-time jobs.
It feels that way sometimes, especially with like the other stuff that's not included in creating the content. So like a lot of replying emails, following up, going to events, filming like sponsored content takes a bit longer because you want those to be higher quality, of course. So yeah, between juggling all that, it does feel like it's 2 full-time jobs sometimes.
And what was the kind of biggest shock diving into this kind of, because you're definitely getting invited to stuff. You were on City Line, you were published in a newspaper.
Yeah, super cool
which
stuff
I'm sure your parents were ecstatic about.
Yeah, they love that.
So like talk about that. Like that's so different than what you're you're traditionally trained for.
Yeah, it almost feels like I'm living a double life sometimes, where I'm like pharmacist by day and then content creator by night. Batman. I was thinking like Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana.
Oh
Like
yeah,
Batman
okay,
too.
yeah.
But yeah, it's been crazy. A lot of like, yeah, so I am getting a bit of recognition in the media, which has been really cool. And honestly, it's kind of been like,
And it's important for people to know too. You're not an overnight success. You've been doing this and you've been putting in the work.
yes, I think a lot of people who strive to be content creators want to see results fast, but it is really like a slow burn. Like,
Yeah.
because I remember when I first started posting TikToks, they were getting like a couple hundred views, maybe 1,000 tops, and I would be like so happy when they got 1,000. But obviously now it's a bit more, and it's really been like a snowball effect. Kind of like it's slow at the beginning, but as long as you don't quit and you keep trying to improve, you will get that success someday.
Very important lesson, guys. You got to keep at it.
Yeah, like the hardest part is just not quitting, I think.
Have you hit road bumps along the way?
Oh, for sure. There's so many times I thought maybe I should just stop. Because like at the beginning, I think it's especially hard for, so being an influencer is easy, but becoming an influencer is hard. So like that part where like,
Okay, explain that a little more.
okay, so being an influencer, which is kind of like where I am at now, like having followers who care, having followers who engage, being invited to events, getting PR, like that part is all fun and like really exciting, but like becoming or coming to this point was difficult. So there was a lot of times that I wish I could just quit. And then I think when I got my first viral video and started getting hate comments, that was also really emotionally difficult. But like as you get, I hate to say it, but as you get more hate comments, it kind of just rolls off your shoulder and you learn to not take it personally. And when you're posting like content that no one's seeing, that no one really engages with, that, you know, it's kind of a little bit embarrassing to like try to become an influencer. It's almost like cringe, as people will call it. And
I think I see that a lot. I think a lot of people, which I don't get, where people just like, they almost like make fun of people trying to become an influencer. It's like, you know, why are you trying to make fun? And don't make fun of people trying to do things with their lives, guys. It's just not cool.
it's because they're jealous and like they don't have courage to do it themselves. So of course they're gonna poke fun at people who are trying to live their dream life. And I kind of see it from that way, but yeah, I agree with you. It's like not right at all. But people will make fun of you at the beginning and you are gonna want to quit. But
So there is a little Jennifer Wang out there who's watching this. What is your message to her?
just keep going. You have no idea what's in store for you.
That is so important. Throughout life, I think everyone thinks it's just a linear line up, but it is not like
No,
that.
it's up and down. Up and down.
Up and down, but you continually apply pressure to a certain direction, you will get there. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Exactly.
I think that is a great topic to end this on. I think that's given a lot of insights to a lot of people, and I think you are inspiring a lot of people. So I want you to keep doing what you're doing. And is there any kind of last messages you want to tell anyone?
Maybe some concluding messages is to stay curious and continue to learn and never give up on yourself.
Yeah. And stay tuned for her own fashion collection coming out.
Coming soon.
Yes. Thanks, guys. I'm Joe. This is Jen. Until next time. If you guys want to see more of these type of videos and more on what goes on behind the scenes in fashion, don't forget to subscribe and check out these videos.